Brian Nevis, and I'm happy to be here today to present to you my video titled From Russia with Health, My Story. I wanted to put this video together because I've been asked many times over the years why I changed my diet around. Was it because of ill health? And I'd be asked what my diet consists of every day. Well, first of all, I want to point out that I'm not giving any medical advice here whatsoever. I'm just stating what's worked for me over the years. What works for me may not work for you, but I will tell you one thing, and that is because my diet has worked so well for me over the years, I certainly don't plan on changing anything in the near future. Even though I'm telling you what my diet consists of and what supplements I take every day, I don't want you to draw any conclusions for yourself because we all have our own specific nutritional needs. I'm just letting you know what has worked well for me, and I'm sure you will find this video very interesting and extremely informative. Now, if you've not watched my other free video, which is titled You, the Bible, and Health, then be sure and watch it, as it is very educational and it's one of a kind. My story starts many years ago, and when I was growing up, I'd pick up numerous health books, and I'd read those. And my diet was pretty much the SAD diet, which stands for the Standard American Diet. Now, as I look back on life, I feel that the one thing that I did eat plenty of was my grandmother's wonderful coleslaw, which I loved. Now, I didn't really know the importance back then of what those live foods meant, but now I sure do. In 1996, I went to Russia to meet some friends, and that's me in the photo. And while visiting, I heard an American over there talking to someone about colon cleansing. When he got done, I started talking to him about it, and he gave me a book to read on the plane coming back home, and the book was actually called Cleanse and Purify Thyself. The book basically said if you want early death and plenty of health problems like many others in this country, then go ahead and eat that Standard American Diet. All I had to do was open my eyes and see most cases the relatives all had to die from cancer, heart disease, or some other serious health issue. I could not think of one that lived to a ripe old age with virtually no health issues and just died in their sleep one night of old age. Now, I don't know about you, but that is how I want to go. I watched several of my family members along with other acquaintances go through some mighty tough times before they died. One was my mother, and I will tell you her story here in a few minutes. Anyway, I made up my mind on that plane coming back home to the States that I was going to do a fast and a colon cleanse. And I stopped at a fast food joint on my way home, and I thought to myself, well, this will be the last time I ever have a burger, fries, and a Coke from one of these places. So I set a date on my calendar to a new journey in life that consisted of a 30-day cleansing phase and a fast. Now, I'd recommend that if you want to do something like that, pick out a date, mark it on your calendar too. That way you can get kind of mentally prepared for it, for that big day. Now, Rise and Shine is a program, and they sell some materials for cleansing, and I bought that product for my fast. Now, I must say I felt pretty good when it was over. I lost some much needed weight, and I got rid of a toxic overload I'd been carrying around for many years. Now, it was not easy doing that fast, but luckily my mind was made up to stick it out. A lot of it was willpower, no question about it, and I was glad when that 30-day period ended. I worked a pretty easy night job, and I was my own boss, so that did make things a little bit easier too. Now, before I started the fast, I was told by the guy in Russia to buy a juicer. Now, I'm not going to mention the brand name, but it was a very popular one back in the 80s and 90s with a high-speed cone on it and with teeth and weighed a ton. Well, I was not happy with that machine because of all the wet pulp, so I started looking for a better one because I'd made my mind up I was going to continue juicing because of how good I felt and all the great health benefits that I'd read about it. So I came very close to buying that $2,000 Norwalk press back then, but discovered at the last minute a twin gear machine that looked pretty promising, and there was some good extraction test results on paper. So I took a chance and I bought it for $566, which was a lot of money for me back then, but logic told me that machine could pay for itself many times over. That machine was a Green Power 1503, and I remember quite well the day I got it because I couldn't wait to try it out. And I could tell from the very first glass of carrot juice it was better tasting than anything I had out of that high-speed juicer. Not only was it better tasting, but the pulp was drier and it lasted longer than the refrigerator. I knew right then and there that machine was the wave of the future when it came to juicing, because of how well it outperformed the King. Now, the internet was just taking off at the time, and I felt once people got educated on juicing, that twin gear machine had a really good chance of going over. I then started my business called Vitality Plus, and it was probably the best move I've ever made in my life. Now, business was pretty slow for the first several years until the internet started picking up steam. Now, my website is vitalityplus1.com. So after my fast, I continued to use my green power, and I started to get into a mostly vegetarian lifestyle. I made mainly a combo of carrot, apple juice, and I took it to work, and I actually sold that to some co-workers. Now, as I look back now, I know I was really kind of consuming too much natural sugars in those drinks, and I should have been adding more greens, which I do now. Now, I noticed amazing things that happened when I started doing that juicing, the fasting, and the aches and the pains that I had started disappearing. Now, it didn't happen overnight, and it did take time for them to go away. Before that trip to Russia, I would occasionally wake up in the middle of the night gasping for air, and that was kind of scary at times. I felt it was going to lead probably to something more serious later on. Now, I'm happy to say that that pretty much has ended, and I have no doubt diet played a key role in changing that. Now, the big thing I noticed was blood pressure dropped to around 110/60, and it had to do nothing but diet, no doubt about it. Now, a few years after I started juicing, my mother was diagnosed with brain cancer. Now, you'd never know she had it just by talking to her. And of course, the doctors wanted to start doing radiation chemotherapy, but I highly recommended her not to, and instead I gave her the book by Max Gerson, which was titled A 50K Study. She nor the rest of the family were going to have anything to do with that book. They felt that those doctors had so much more college medicine than me that that was a no-brainer. That and the fact she was going to have to make some major dietary change, and she just really, I don't think, really wanted to do that. Now, when my mother signed her name on the dotted line to begin that radiation and chemo treatments, she basically was signing her life away. I could not believe how fast she went downhill after they started on her. She looked like she had aged 20 years in 4 months. There's no doubt in my mind that if she had done nothing at all, she would have lived longer. No question about it. You know, nobody can convince me that the treatments did not kill her instead of that cancer, especially knowing what I've learned about cut, burn, and poison, the cancer treatments. Now, I want to show you a before and after picture of my mother. This was taken in her last days of life, and when I took that photo, I knew someday that I'd be presenting it to the public so they could see what she went through. Now, I do want to point out, I personally know of others that really have met the same fate. Her death was just that much more of an incentive to continue on with my diet. And I'm going to tell you what I normally eat every day. Now, be sure and read the written version of this video, since I do keep it updated from time to time, and there's some great recipes and other information on there too. I always start the day with a shot of Intramax. It is one of the best liquid supplements I've ever been able to find. It's not pasteurized, and it takes them about 30 days to make that product. I get a nice little boost of energy from it and somewhat of a full feeling. Now, there's a special way to take it, but if you want to learn more about that, you can visit the manufacturer's website, which is druckerlabs.com, or you can see my website. You have to drink some pure water right afterwards, which I do, and then I take about a 7-ounce cup, blender cup, and I fill it with purified water, and I add 1 scoop of probiotics to that water, and then blend it well in my little personal blender. And I really think the best probiotics are going to be the ones that have to be kept in a refrigerator, and I use the 11 strain ones. That's from Custom Probiotics. About 1.5 hours later, I'll have a veggie juice from my Green Star, and that's always going to be a carrot, spinach, and celery. And I will take 2 teaspoons of my Vitality Plus juiced barley powder and a teaspoon of Richard Schultz's Superfood, and I will put that in there and I'll shake it up, and I'll usually consume that in about 2 minutes. Now, that is really a supercharged drink with the juice from the juicer and those green supplements. Now I do follow that up immediately with 8-ounce glass of purified water, and then I will take about a third of a teaspoon of vitamin C crystal, and I will put that in that water that I'm consuming, shake it up quite well, and then I'll drink that. And I usually buy that vitamin C in 1-pound packs, and you can usually get a pretty good price on that over the web. Now the juicer that I use is the Green Star 5000. To me, they are the best juicers on the market for the money. I found out long ago that you never want to use that high-speed juicer, as I said before, since they can heat up the juice. You get a lot of friction and oxidation, things that you definitely don't want. That oxidation makes that juice go bad quicker. High-speed machines are very inefficient when it comes to doing green leafy, and I highly recommend organic green leafy in any juicing diet. That green juice is like giving yourself a blood transfusion. Other than each one just having one different element, they are identical. That chlorophyll and in your human blood is almost practically identical except for the 2 different elements. High-speed juicers have always had the claim of being able to put nice big pieces of produce in them, and they're relatively fast. Well, there's absolutely no doubt about that, but they sure lack a lot in the more important categories. Now with a Green Star, you have to use a little bit more effort to push some of the produce through the machine, but really the effort's well worth it with all those added benefits you get compared to any of the high-speed machines. Cleanup's not too bad. With a Green Star, I can clean in about 6 minutes. I do use a stainless steel brush on the screen, which does make it a little bit easier. Now, as far as I'm concerned, everyone in this country should own a good quality juicer, especially in this day and age when most of the foods do not contain the nutritional value that we were ever designed for. The Green Star 5000 and 2000 are certainly my biggest sellers. See the written part of my story here, because I do give you the 10 reasons why everybody should own a juicer. Now with the Green Star, you can do some nut butters with it and make some pretty tasty frozen treats. Now I go a step further with juicing. I take that leftover pulp and I put it in my Energy Star hydraulic juice press that we manufacture here, and I can get about 17% more juice out of that pulp. Now nothing can compete against a 2-ton hydraulic press. Now people that are pretty serious about juicing may want to consider one of those presses, and I know Gerson Institute highly recommends them for people that have the serious health issues. I put all the juice in a stainless steel pot, mix it all together, and pour that into 8-ounce canning jars, leaving a 1-inch gap at the top because of the next step. I always remove the air with a really neat little pump that I sell. It's called Pump It and Seal It. I can keep juices and leftover foods for 3 to 4 days at a time with no problem. Now by the way, the body cannot process any more than 8 ounces of juice per hour. That's why cancer institutes only give their patients 8 ounces per hour. Now I want to point out, I really only sell things that I would use personally. One thing I keep in my kitchen is a glass bowl of nuts, and there's always going to be raw almonds, pecans, and walnuts in there. Notice I did say raw nuts, that's the key. I'm usually eating some of those throughout the day. When tomatoes are in season, I love having some cherry tomatoes with the nuts. And I may have some baked organic tortilla chips with them too. This gives them a little bit more flavor. Now if you have a hard time eating raw nuts, get yourself some roasted ones and kind of mix those in until you get more acclimated to the raw ones. Sometime close to noon, I may have a survival bar, and I get those from Hallelujah Acres. The bars are an organic blend of healthy, live food. My favorite is going to be the cranberry and cinnamon. Those are 2 separate ones. Now they're one of the better energy bars made. Sometimes I have a banana with that too. That's more or less my lunch. I kind of got away from bigger lunches years ago when I got to a point where I didn't really have the time to fix them anymore. Sometimes when you're working 3 jobs, it really made it difficult to eat. Once things started slowing down for me, I never really did go back to big lunches. I never really did miss those after a while, and I think I'm a lot better off that way personally. Somewhere around 1:30 to 2 p.m. I will sometimes have a yogurt. Now I'm lucky, I only live about 2 miles from a good source of raw milk. And occasionally I will make that yogurt in my Yo Life yogurt maker, which I sell, and it really does turn out well using the raw milk. Now I will sometimes blend that yogurt in my personal blender with a sweetener, and I like the frozen grape concentrate, maybe put a little bit of banana in that. And I really can't overemphasize how good the raw yogurt is, especially, you know, raw. Now sometimes I buy the store-bought, and my favorite is going to be the So Delicious coconut milk, and I take that, and again I will put that in there with maybe a banana and some frozen fruit of some sort. And around 4 p.m. I'll have another veggie juice from my Green Star like I did in the morning, plus the green powders that I mixed with it. And instead of doing vitamin C in water, I'll maybe put a Farmanac in there, and I'll either take a mineral complex and a B complex vitamin together, or I might switch off every day and I might do a CoQ10 and a milk thistle, which by the way is great for the liver. Now, as I said, I do kind of switch off every day, and I may try alpha lipoic acid, may put that in there with something else. But I want to point out with the juicer that I can keep juice 3 to 4 days with no problem when I use the neat little vacuum pump that I sell. I know I'd mentioned that earlier, but I know a lot of people don't want to juice every day, and it sure makes it a lot easier when you can save that juice and only juice twice a week like I do. Around 6 p.m. is when I eat my biggest meal of the day. Sometimes I will eat a little bit earlier if I can. I always love to be able to burn off some of those calories before I go to bed, and the earlier I can eat, the better. Someday I really hope to get to a point where I can eat about 4 p.m. every day. That would be terrific. Now for dinner, I always have a large raw organic salad almost every night, and I think that's extremely valuable to have one daily, no question about it. In fact, I'm addicted to them and juices just like an alcoholic is to liquor. They have to be the two most important parts of my diet. Now, if you don't like them, you know, I would really try to learn to like them, because it wasn't really that hard for me. You know, it took a little bit of time, but taste buds do change, and I would try to incorporate it a little at a time. Just like with juices, you know, I make salads up several days in advance for myself and my dogs who get greens too. I use a commercial lettuce cutter called Lincoln Lettuce King. And if you're cutting up lettuces for several people and you have the room and you can afford one, you might want to consider getting them because they are terrific. I usually cut up organic romaine, but sometimes I'll use green leaf and red leaf lettuces. And I buy a case of organic lettuces a week as they special order that for me. Sometimes if you talk to your produce manager, they may give you a discount when buying that by the case. And there's usually going to be 6 in a case, and I cut up 6 heads at a time. Having a couple of refrigerators and a couple of freezers is almost a must too. Now, I always use my Vitality Plus organic fruit and veggie wash on any produce that I buy from the store. Now, it's not going to remove wax, but it will help with other things. I also use a KitchenAid food processor, and I use it to shred 1 pound of carrots in that salad, and I'll put a half a head of cabbage in it and a few heads of broccoli. Now all that is all organic. I then mix all that together and I put them in individual plastic bowls with lids, and they really seem to keep really quite well. I can keep those 3 to 4 days at a time. And if you pack them really full and try to keep as much air out, it's even better. Now, I only make the salads twice a week, just like with the juicing. The one thing that I do make fresh every day is my famous Vitality Plus organic salad dressing. I am so addicted to that stuff that I have to have it every night, I'll tell you. And you have to see the written part of my video for a little more precise details on that. But basically, I use fresh tomato or dried tomato powder. And then I'm going to use the juice from a lemon, use olive oil, garlic, onion, radish, cucumber, a little bit of juice from my cucumber dish that I make weekly, and also I may put some sauerkraut in there, and I definitely put honey in it too. Not only does that taste fantastic, but it has great nutritional value too. Now it's always going to be superior to any bottled stuff that you'd ever buy. Now, I use that Tri-Best Personal Blender PB250 with a 24-ounce cup. I use that together. That personal blender was one of the best things that they ever came out with. I use that thing almost practically every day. I then use that grinding attachment on that blender to grind up golden flaxseed, and I spread that on my salad too. And if I'm making coleslaw, I'll put it on coleslaw. When that is all finished, I have one large, huge, delicious, nutrient-loaded salad. Now, to me, that is an absolute must for good health. Now, I cannot overemphasize raw food in the diet. Now, I do drink organic green iced tea with dinner too. Now, I'm not a raw foodist and never plan on being one. I love the taste of cooked food with salad. I eat both cooked and raw together, as I think if you combine the enzyme-rich salad with the dead cooked food, it may help you digest food a little bit better. I know in the book Enzyme Nutrition, Dr. Howell in there says that when you consume cooked foods, the body has to draw enzymes from the pancreas to help you digest those foods, and he states that the human body only has so many enzymes to draw from in one's lifetime. Now, I don't know how true that is, but at least with all the raw food that I eat, I should be helping my enzyme bank, I would think, to some degree. Now, as far as the cooked food goes and the meat, I only eat meat 1 or 2 times a week, and it's usually wild-caught sockeye salmon, or I may put a free-ranged organic chicken or turkey in a crock pot, and then I will freeze the leftovers, usually put those in single-serving wraps. When I want the chicken or turkey again, I just remove it from the freezer a few hours beforehand, and then I steam it, usually with some frozen peas and maybe some corn. Then I'll usually take some yellow organic potatoes, boil them, and then I will take the potatoes, put those in a bowl along with those veggies, and I will kind of mash those up, and then I will melt some raw butter to put on that. And you really kind of want to remove the butter as close to the melting point as possible so you can preserve enzyme activity. Now, pasta is a favorite meal of mine. I always use a combo of Eden organic heirloom kamut or the organic spelt pasta. I use an organic pasta sauce, which is usually a veggie with tomato and basil. One type of bread that I absolutely love is Nature Path's Manna Bread, multi-grain. This is a frozen sprouted bread, and I really think the sprouted types are even more nutritious. Now I'll break up some of that bread and I'll put that, or put some pasta over it, and that is fantastic. I usually use that bread with any dish that I make that has tomato in it. Now, I think beans should be a part of everyone's diet, and I usually try to have those in cooked foods 3 to 5 times a week. I make a large batch of 7 bean soup at one time and freeze them in 16-ounce canning jars. That 7 bean soup has a variety of organic beans in it, and I put brown rice and onions. Now, you want to soak those beans in water at least 8 hours beforehand. And be sure and dump that water out and add new water before cooking. I like to use alkaline water for my water alkalizer. I actually think the beans taste better when using that kind of water. I'll see the written portion of the video for more details on that. That alkalizer that I use is a hydrocide, and it makes both alkaline and acid waters. One cooking utensil that is a must for me is a large pressure cooker. You can save a lot of time when cooking beans in one of those, and I think beans are more nutritious, and I save money by using the cooker because of how fast it gets the beans done. I wish I'd known about those years ago, because I would have bought one a long time ago. Now, when I do beans, I usually fill the pressure cooker to the max, and then I will freeze those leftovers in the canning jars. Now, I always cook my beans and my pasta and veggies in those pressure cookers. I also cook up a big pot of navy beans in those, and I freeze them too. I love having that with cornbread, and I will make my own cornbread by grinding my organic heirloom corn along with some organic heirloom kamut flour in the Wolfgang grain mill. They are really kind of nice handcrafted mills with an industrial motor, and they're actually made in Germany. The one thing about having beans and grains together is they do make for a mostly complete meal. When you include the organic salad, you have a really complete meal. Now, I usually have at least 1 can of organic soup per week, and I would never recommend getting any non-organic soups. And I'll tell you, my favorite has to be probably the Muir Glen organic lentil soup. That's one that I will open, and I'll pour that into a strainer and discard the liquid, and then I will put that in a saucepan, and I will put some fresh organic crushed heirloom tomatoes with it from my garden, and some organic pasta sauce, and I will actually cut up some onion and put some frozen peas with that too. Warm that on the stove and then put that over manna bread. It's fantastic. Now, there's another dish that I make that reminds me years ago when my mother would take me to the Steak and Shake after swimming, and I'd get that chili 3 ways, which I really loved. Well, I take a can of Amy's organic mild veggie chili, and I add all the things that I just mentioned with the lentils except the peas, and then I will cook some small amount of that favorite pasta I told you about in my pressure cooker, and then add that to the chili, heat it up, and that tastes so much like that Steak and Shake chili 3 ways except without the meat. Now, that's cooked in a saucepan for about 7 minutes, and then I pour that over that manna bread. Now, there's usually enough there to where you can save half of that, save it in a manna bread, and I can keep it for 3 to 4 days, like I said, by removing the air with that pump it and seal it. A veggie burger is something I really like to have at least twice a week. My favorite is Amy's California Organic Burgers, and I always use organic sprouted grain buns with those, and then I will take a slice of organic cheddar or Swiss raw cheese, and I always will have an ear of corn with that in the summer, or maybe some organic frozen French fries that I might bake in the oven in the winter. Luckily, from what I hear, most of the sweet corn that you buy in the store is not GMO yet, but I expect it probably to change, so you'll have to kind of watch that. One dish that I usually have once a week is where I will take frozen organic peas, put those in my pressure cooker, along with some yellow organic potatoes, some green beans, and some corn on the cob. And I will, if I have those fresh from my garden, I'll always use those first. I cook that for about 15 minutes, then I take the corn, I put that in a dish, and then I dump the rest of that into a bowl. Then I smash that up with a potato smasher, and then take half of the liquid from the pressure cooker and pour that into the bowl with that, and then the rest of that from that pressure cooker goes in with my dog's food. My dogs eat basically at the same time I eat dinner. Don't throw that liquid out because it is pretty good. You got all that minerals and things in there from that food. The last thing I do is warm up some of that organic butter that I have, just enough to melt it where you should not be able to destroy the enzymes in there. I pour some of that over the corn, and the rest of that goes on those mashed veggies. Now, the salt that I use to season that with is going to be pink Himalayan salt. Don't ever use the common table salt. That stuff is not a good choice. Another good choice of salt may be that Celtic sea salt, which is a gray type. Now, I had a friend over when I made that veggie dish I just told you about with those veggies from that pressure cooker, and she absolutely loved it. So that is not a bad meal either. Just like with the juice extractor, everyone needs a really good high-powered blender, and the best one for the money is going to be the Blendtec. I use the HP3A model, and I like those over that other popular blender that's made in the USA that everybody knows. That's a household name. Now, the Blendtec is made in the USA like that other one, but is a bit cheaper in price and has more power. Those two reasons really has what made it one of the most popular blenders that I carry. One of the frozen fruit drinks that I like to make is with berries. Now I'll take about 12 ounces of purified water, put that in that BlendTec, add about 25 ice cubes, and then put in 1 to 2 frozen bananas, and then maybe 2 to 3 cups of black or blueberries, maybe a tablespoon of frozen organic grape concentrate, and then maybe some cinnamon and vanilla. Now the samples that I gave to everybody, they all really kind of raved about it. They were all quite happy. But if you want to see more recipes with that blender, like I say, see the written part that I have written for this video. Another device I would not be without is a Sedona dehydrator. Certainly the quietest and has the most accurate drying, even temperatures. Now it's a bit pricey, but like with most anything, you pay for what you get in life. The one thing I use my dehydrator for is to make dried tomato sheets. I'll usually put over 100 organic heirloom tomatoes out every year in my garden, and I take those and then I'll wash those and cut off the stem and any bad spots, and I'll put those in that BlendTec blender and blend those for a minute or so. Then I'll take the liquid and I'll pour that into a gallon jar and then let that separate for about 15 minutes. Then I skim off the heavy parts of that and pour that onto non-stick sheets that are on that dehydrator tray and dry it for about 8 to 10 hours at a temperature near 115 degrees to preserve enzyme activity. I use a digital thermometer in the unit and keep an eye on it, and I do turn that down as it approaches 115 degrees. I take the sheets out of the unit and I put those in freezer bags, and you can store them in the freezer. It's not really necessary, but I like to put mine in there. Then I use the tomatoes in my salad dressing in the winter months when I don't have fresh ones out of my garden. What I'll do is I'll crunch those tomatoes up, and I'll take about 2 tablespoons of the dried tomatoes, put that in my personal blender, grind it up, and then add water, and then I'll blend it, and then I'll add all the rest of those ingredients I told you about in that salad dressing. That way I've got tomatoes to use year-round. Now, of course, I am using the fresh tomatoes from about July 1st to November 1st. Now, there's other great things you can do with that Sedona dehydrator too, but I mainly just use it for tomatoes, and I hope some year to get into making some more fantastic things with that. Now, another very valuable piece of equipment that I wouldn't be without is my Easy or Fresh Life sprouters. Now I always have fresh sprouts from about October 1st to June 1st. I usually don't sprout too much in the summer since it does get warm and sprouts don't do all that well in hot, humid weather where I'm at. Sprouts are really nutritious, and I would either juice them or I would put them on salads. I love the French Garden, which has 6 different types of seed in it. Now, as far as desserts go, I may have a bite of dark organic chocolate. I always try to make that 70 or 80% dark because I hear there are some benefits with chocolate. I like some frozen rice milk, the vanilla type ice cream once in a while. Or I might have those frozen fruit drinks that I was telling you about earlier in the blender. Or a bowl of berries, strawberries, blackberries, blueberries with a banana. Maybe put a little xylitol on it. Now, as far as exercise goes, I love to take my dogs for a walk, at least a mile walk every day, usually after dinner if I can, to burn off those calories. Deep breathing is very beneficial too when exercising. And I also like to bicycle several miles. I think it's a great exercise. A rebounder, mini trampoline rebounder is a really great exercise for moving lymph in the body. And I'll also split firewood mostly by hand, all in the winter months, and working in the garden is terrific too. Everyone that has space really needs to have an organic heirloom garden for health reasons. I consider mine to be one of my greatest assets in life. Now, if you can't have a garden, the next best thing to do is to buy your produce from your local farmers markets. They're really the places you want to get them. Then of course organic health food stores that sell produce and veggies are really good choices too. Now if you're one of the fortunate people to live out in the country, consider yourself very lucky, especially in this day and age. Pure water is very important in life, and you're not going to get that from most city water lines. Now I don't have to worry about all the toxic chemicals in my water since I live outside of town. So I use reverse osmosis system to mainly remove an abundance of minerals. I love the taste of that RO water also. Now ROs may not be suitable for everyone, so an electric water distiller like the Mini Classic might be something that people might want to consider. That water is almost 100% pure. And I do not think you can really expect good health when you're drinking all the chemicals that are in city waters. I do like to put my pure water in a water revitalizer, and it's actually called a Duet. It kind of gives back some of the mineral content and enhances that water too. Another thing that I like to use is essential oils, and the way I use those is I put a few drops in a little personal inhaler. And those drops will last for several weeks at a time. I love cinnamon, and I also like frankincense. They're really just kind of refreshing to inhale once in a while. Now some of the better oils are made by datura. Everyone likes to grill out occasionally, and I'm certainly one of them. So here's what I like to do. I like to take some corn on the cob, put that in some cold water, let it soak for a couple hours. Then I will put that on the grill, turning it occasionally, and I'm going to cook that for about 15 minutes total. Then I'll take some yellow organic potatoes and put those in my pressure cooker for about 15 minutes, and I will cut the big potatoes in half. And if you like green beans with yours, you might want to put those in there along with the potatoes. I do that occasionally. Now when done, I will put those on a aluminum cooking tray that has like some slots in the bottom. They're like disposable aluminum trays. I then put some asparagus on those and those green beans if I had those in there. And then I will slice up some organic onions and lay that on top of the potatoes, which like I said had the asparagus on it and maybe some green beans. Then I will melt some raw butter and melt that, and then I will kind of brush that on the veggies, and then I'll kind of top that off with some black pepper, and I'll sprinkle some oregano on top of that. Then I'm going to put that on the grill about the same time I'm putting that corn on there, and like I say, let that cook for about 15 minutes, and I'm leaving the corn in the husk. And I will brush on some butter on that tray of veggies during the cooking process. Now the meat that I'm using on that grill is usually always going to be wild-caught sockeye salmon, and I brush on some butter and lemon juice on the non-skin side and cook that for about 3 to 4 minutes per side. Now the live food that I have with that meal is either usually going to be an organic salad or organic coleslaw, and I serve that with some green iced tea. Now I had one person tell me that I really need to be in the restaurant business after they tasted that meal. They absolutely loved it. Now once or twice a year I may have some deer tenderloin. Might put that on the grill instead of the salmon. Now as far as the grills go, I don't really like to use any charcoal since I've heard really some negative things about those. I always use an infrared gas grill. As far as alcohol goes, I will always believe that a fruit type alcoholic drink like organic red wine is going to be superior to anything. I know there's been a ton of good things said about red wine over the years. Now once in a while I'll take a glass of that red wine and have that on ice, and I'll put maybe 1/3 of a teaspoon of vitamin C crystals with it. I also do like blackberry and blueberry wines. I think those can be helpful, but of course, as with any alcoholic product, always moderation. Another product I like to use in the winter months is the Humio humidifier to keep some moisture in the air, which I think it really can be kind of helpful. It does have an LED light, which is pretty cool, and the newer ones have a place where you can put essential oils, where they could kind of go out into the room. Okay, pets is next on the list here. I'm going to tell you a little bit how I take care of my pets, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are watching this video that have probably either dogs or cats. The first thing I do when I get a new dog, which is usually always a German Shepherd, I love the breed and I think they're beautiful, I will pick them up from the breeder, and they usually give me some dog food with it, which is good. And they also give me a list of shots and vaccinations for the dog that it's going to need in the weeks and months to come. Now, the first thing I do with that list of vaccinations when I get home is to file them straight in the trash can. I am not about to have my dogs injected with all those toxic foreign substances. Now, the one thing that I may give my dogs is a rabies shot. I think that might be a good idea. And I know a lot of places are actually required to have them legally. Now, in my book, high quality raw food replaces the need for those vaccinations. But, you know, that's just my opinion. Generally, my dogs do not have health problems until maybe they get over the age of 10. Now, the last problem I had with my dog was she was exposed to off-gassing from a new carpet, and that really taught me a big lesson. Now, she was past 10 years old, and her immune system, I just don't think it handled the off-gassing from the carpet. Now, I have since increased the nutrition in my pet's food, and I did help her beat that problem for almost 2 years, and it was certainly with nutrition. I had to have her on drugs for a short period of time, I think, just to kind of help save her life. But I'll tell you what, I got her off of those drugs as fast as I possibly could, because, you know, the drugs are not going to heal anything. They are basically just a cover-up, and they trick the body into believing something different. So my dog was a totally different dog on those drugs, and I got her off of those as soon as I possibly could. When I make up salads for myself, I'm always making, cutting up greens for my dogs too. I will take the leftover organic pulp from my juicing and add a handful of that to those greens that I cut up. And then I'll take some veggie juice from my Green Star, usually with the carrots, spinach, celery, and I will take that, about a half a glass of that, and add at least one big scoop of the organic Vitality Plus organic canine barley supreme, and I will add a scoop of colostrum powder to that. I shake that up really well, and then I pour that over the dog's food. Now, as far as raw meat goes, I like deer for them, and then my second choice is going to be beef, and finding a farmer that has good quality beef. Buying a half a beef is really about the cheapest way to go. And I also like to get some free-range chicken and turkey from a local farmer's market. And in fact, I went to one of the local stores right after Thanksgiving. They had some organic turkeys that were marked way down in price, and I bought every one that they had in the store, and I took those out and I had them all ground up, and then I froze them. So that was part of the dog food I had for my dogs. But I do have all that meat ground up. It's always best if you can grind it up, because that way you mix it in the food with all the rest of it, and the dogs can't really just pick through it and just get the meat. They have to kind of really eat it all. I will then put some olive oil on their food, and tomatoes. If I got extra tomatoes, I'll smash those up and put those in. Otherwise, I may use a little Bragg raw apple cider vinegar in there. And then I mix all that stuff up by hand. Then I will add some golden flax seed. I grind that up in my little personal blender, and then I will top it off with I know Dr. Mercola's got some probiotics for pets. I will put that on there too. One option is to pour that juice I was telling you about, that juice mixture. If you want to pour that on last rather than mixing it up, that way it's not really as liquidy until after you get it put in the bowl. Now, the last thing I might top the dog's food off might be a little bit of salad dressing that I might have in the bottom of my little blender cup. I might put that on there. Now, a new dog will have to get acclimated to that type of food. You certainly don't really want to start them out immediately going on that type of food, since they've been eating, commercial dog foods pretty much all their life. So you want to slowly acclimate them to that. Then eventually you're going to get to a point where it's going to be all raw. I feed my dogs just once per day, and I usually do that when I have dinner. I will give my dogs canned salmon or tuna once in a while and use salmon oil instead of that olive oil. And with the ground chicken or turkey, I will give them a raw, free-range egg instead of that olive oil. So I do switch up once in a while. I think it's always best to do that. I know some people frown on giving their dogs bones, but I try to save my deer rib bones and beef bones and give those to the dog occasionally around noon. And I have given my dog raw chicken and turkey bones in the past too, and I've never had any problems whatsoever. Now, as far as water goes, I give my dogs the same type of water I drink. Usually the RO, and I may add a little bit of tap water since it's got a little bit more mineral content, but I don't have the poisons in my water that are in city water, so maybe a little blend of RO and a little blend of tap water. Now, years ago, I worked with a guy who lived near one of those pet rendering plants where they make pet food. And he told me about the horrific smell coming from some of those trucks headed to those plants. These rendering plants take all the dead animals and they cook them down in a big vat, and then they dry it, and then that goes in your dog food, and that is actually called animal byproduct. Now, I don't have the heart to feed my dogs canned or bagged foods. My dogs are given some of the finest raw foods. And I know it takes, an effort to be able to feed them that way, but to me it's worth it in the long run. Cats are a bit different, but I always try to give them some raw meat that I'm feeding my dogs in the afternoon. My cats usually stay outside in an outbuilding, and they do kind of roam on their own occasionally, so they do get some natural mice, which is good. Now, I will feed them a commercial cat food, but it's usually decent stuff with no grains in it, and usually it's kind of a salmon-based food. And I do put that powdered greens on the food occasionally too, like I do with the dogs. One important thing to remember with pet foods is a lot of those contain grains, and most likely those grains are all going to be GMO, which is not going to be good choices. Most all products made list their ingredients in order of the amount of the product on the label. So you want to kind of pay close attention to labels. When I took my dogs in for some of those rabies shots in the past, I would have some great comments from the vets about how well my dog looked, and I told them that the diet that I fed them, and they always complimented me on that, and they would just say, well, most people don't really want to take the time, to feed their dogs that way. My dogs very seldom ever have health problems, like I said, and I think most animals are all meant to be eating live, raw food full of enzymes and not dead, pasteurized food from a bag or a can. If you ever get a chance, sometime read The Cat Experiment with Pottinger, where he used dead food and live foods in an experiment. I think you'll be I think you'll find it really kind of interesting. Well, there you have it. That is my story. I hope it has given you some good ideas and help you with a happy, healthy lifestyle. And I know this may not be for everybody, but it sure worked for me by keeping me out of the doctor's office, which is top priority. I know I don't plan on changing anything in the near future, since my diet seems to keep me from having all those health problems so many Americans are suffering from in this country. Without a doubt, the best move I ever made in my life was to change my diet around years ago, because I know it's paid huge dividends, and I know it is going to pay huge dividends in those senior years when it's really going to come in handy. You know, I've heard hundreds of stories over the years from customers who've changed their diet around and gone to juicing and raw foods, and I mean, it has been absolutely amazing. The evidence is so overwhelming that nobody could ever convince me otherwise, just from the stories that I've heard. If you have not watched my other video titled You, the Bible and Health, then be sure and watch it, as it has some great information on that too. You know, and that's whether you're a believer in the great Creator or not. Also, be sure and see the written part of this video, since there are some other great recipes on there. I list where you can buy some of the products. I do plan on keeping that page updated too. Now, please visit our website, vitalityplus1.com and midwesthealthministries.com. And if you know of anybody that would benefit from this video, please pass this video location on to them or the DVD. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I wish you the very best health to you and your pets. Thank you very much.